Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. I want to provide you a quick update on some of what's being shared by attorneys within the XRP community, specifically having to do with the whole FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried fiasco, because he's a butt nugget with a scam fraudster guy. Ripple's top in-house legal guy, their general counsel, Stuart Alderati, had some stuff to say about the FTX situation as it pertains specifically to BlockFi. It looks like they're going bankrupt also, because they're in. Well, there are a number of reasons having to do with how the SEC attacked them, but then also getting bailed out by a Ponzi scheme, which is FTX. So there's that as well. But the question is, given that they were fined $100 million, and they were in the SEC versus BlockFi suit, given that they were fined $100 million. Did any of that stolen customer fund from FTX, is that what ended up making its way into the hands of the asshats at the SEC? I want to know. I really want to know. So there's that and more. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And you'll see that there's a reason that Attorney Deaton is saying that he assumes that a lot of people and a lot of entities are lawyering up as a result of all this nonsense. So I want to start off the video by sharing with you this tweet from the Watcher Guru account, which wrote, "Just in, Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX executives donated $70 million to U.S. politicians for midterm elections weeks before filing for bankruptcy," Bloomberg reports. Now, that part, I'm sure that most of you have probably heard to this point, that there's just been an excessive amount of money flowing into the hands of politicians on both to the Democrat and Republican parties in the United States, though the strong majority of it, from what I've seen, did happen to favor the Democrats. And probably not surprising we have additional pieces of the puzzle here. Probably not surprising to see how SBF had access to Kim Jong-Gensler. Because just to be clear, he's had multiple meetings. SBF, before the whole Ponzi scheme fell apart, SBF had multiple meetings with Kim Jong-Gensler. How do you get access to the chair of the SEC just out of nowhere? You're a dude who's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 years old. You started the company a couple years or so ago, and now you're meeting with the SEC chair. He's not meeting with the executives from other exchanges, generally speaking. He's mostly just verbally ripping exchanges apart. But here he's meeting with SBF. And it just so happens to be the case that SBF is donating insane amounts of money. It is what it is. It is what it is. Attorney Deaton retweeted that, and he had the following to say about this. And this is kind of interesting. He wrote, "I'm not a bankruptcy lawyer, but my general understanding is that anybody or any entity that received money in the 90 days before FTX filed for bankruptcy can be hit with a preference claim. This also could include customers who withdrew $5 billion from FTX before it filed for bankruptcy." So I'll pause and note, I'd actually heard something to this effect before. It's just interesting when you think about the amount of money that ended up getting donated. Would that be impacted here? But from what I had read, if you donated money from FTX within the last 90 days before the bankruptcy, the government can apparently attempt to kind of claw that back from you if you did that. Which, it's unfortunate because most of those just would have been regular exchange transactions, presumably anyway. But it is what it is. And then Attorney Deaton says, a different claim can also be asserted called a fraudulent transfer claim. The new CEO of FTX could try and argue that the political donations SBF made count as fraudulent transfers and must be returned. I assume there are a lot of people and entities lawyering up right now. Oh, that's safe to assume. I think so. So as far as the money that was donated, claw that back from the government. Good. I mean, maybe it happens. If it's fraudulent, it certainly, it looks like that. Obviously the whole Sam Bankman-Fried things, obviously that's a fraudulent Ponzi scheme. But I don't know from a legal perspective what it would take to get that money clawed back. Can you make a legal claim that those transfers, however long ago they were would be entangled in that? I would hope the answer would be yes. I'm just literally saying I don't know for sure, but Attorney Deaton seems to think that that's a distinct possibility here. He's talking about, fraudulent transfers. Money must be returned. I hope so. Again, it's just like, are you going to be able to claw that money back, though? Ugh. Take a look at this from Stuart Alderati, who is Ripple's general counsel. That's their top in-house legal guy. He wrote, and let me just set the table here. As far as the BlockFi situation, again, I know I touched on it at the outset, but I want to be clear so to make sure everybody's on the same page here. BlockFi is a firm that offered, past tense, offered, because it looks like they're going bankrupt now, and they halted withdrawals recently. BlockFi used to offer interest on crypto. So what you do is you'd hand over the keys to your crypto, you give it to BlockFi, and then you'd earn interest on that. Kind of like, like a savings account at a traditional bank. It sounds kind of like that anyway. Well, the SEC came after BlockFi and said that what you're doing constitutes as illegal securities transactions, and you didn't register with us, the asshats at the SEC. And so BlockFi, rather than litigating this thing to the end, they decided to go ahead and settle. They obviously don't have the same war chest that Ripple has to fight the SEC. So they ended up agreeing on a $100 million fine. And this is all heading as markets were falling apart, like the Luna collapse and all of this, in terms of when the settlement details came out. It was just a bad time all around. BlockFi apparently had no way to remain solvent without additional help. And so FTX came in and was bailing out BlockFi. That was allegedly what was happening here. But again, BlockFi didn't have the $100 million to pay. So that would have meant that customer funds, illegally acquired, were being potentially, anyway, used to pay for the BlockFi settlement. So that money from customers, stolen funds from customers on FTX, making its way into the hands of the SEC. So you've got the donations making its way to the SEC, it looks like, and then customer funds potentially. Pretty wild stuff. So here's what Stuart Alderati had to say, general counsel at Ripple. Nothing was ever registered per the BlockFi/SEC deal. What about the first two payments on the $100 million fine? If they were made, did the SEC confirm BlockFi's ability to pay and or the source of funds? FTX shows a $250 million loan to BlockFi, and now customer funds are blocked. So think about this. So the $250 loan to BlockFi, so if BlockFi did ultimately pay, and presumably they would have if money were actually sent, did the SEC engage in any due diligence? They're just like, money, mine. I'm guessing it was that one. Rather than, okay, but where'd you get this? Can you just verify for us? What's the source of this? Just want to make sure that you actually can pay for this. You send this funds. Okay, great, but where's it coming from? Any sort of due diligence on the SEC's behalf whatsoever? Maybe. I'm not optimistic about that, let's say. And then Stuart Alderati wrote, despite BlockFi ending up intertwined with FTX and customers left holding the bag, the SEC still markets the BlockFi deal as another win for regulation by enforcement. Oh, what a tangled web. And he's not kidding. So here is an announcement. This is official SEC website. They released this on November 15th. So if memory serves, that would have been what? Memory serves, I think it might have been like 4 or 5 days after FTX filed for bankruptcy. So it was well known what was going on here. And, the association with FTX and BlockFi, like the SEC had the knowledge, okay? But still, they released this. It was a press release titled SEC Announces Enforcement Results for FY22, fiscal year 22. And so if you scroll down right now, if you're looking at the screen, you can see under the crypto section here, they talk about BlockFi. And they're really proud of what they did with BlockFi. Look what they wrote here. Charges against BlockFi Lending LLC for failing to register the offers and sales of its retail crypto lending product, and in a first-of-its-kind action against crypto lending platforms for violating the registration requirements of the Investment Company Act of 1940. So there you go. So SEC, if you got funds, and I technically don't know for sure, but if you did, and you probably should have paid some installment by now, you understand that came from FTX, and you know where FTX got the money, right? Did you look into that at all? Did you look into that? Oh, I think they were turning a blind eye. I mean, it's just the SEC in general. Like even, well, I'll say this. What I meant when I said that a second ago is particularly turning a blind eye before there were, cracks in the cement, before it was publicly known widely that this was that FTX was an actual Ponzi. Like earlier in this year when SBF was meeting with Kim Jong-Gensler. I still think that they were turning a blind eye back then, not heavily looking into or sufficiently looking into FTX or any of this. It's like pay for play effectively, and it's gross to me, but that's what it looks like. Then attorney Deaton retweeted that from Stuart Alderati and wrote, I encourage everyone to read the 2 tweets below. Read it and then just think about it. That's our SEC and Gary Gensler in action. Don't forget the co-lead SEC attorney prosecuting the Ripple case left midstream to go work at BlockFi. And that's something I'd reported on when that happened, and I just found it fascinating. But yes, one of the lead attorneys prosecuting Ripple left the SEC and took a job at BlockFi as all of this was going on. So there must have been some sort of perceived value add on the end of BlockFi. But, that SEC attorney, who could have known that, that would all fall apart months later. So not the best career move in hindsight. I'm sure that attorney is aware of that to this point as BlockFi is going under. I don't believe in karma, but if I did, I'd be like, see. And then there's this from Bill Morgan, who is an attorney within the XRP community. He also retweeted what Stuart Alderati said, and he wrote, so what you are saying is that the crypto assets of FTX/BlockFi investors, whom the SEC is meant to protect, which the SEC probably thinks are securities, were stolen and used to pay BlockFi's SEC fine, and the SEC received stolen funds. Is receiving stolen funds a crime/felony? Which is an excellent question. And attorney Hogan responded to attorney Morgan and wrote, if you put it that way, Bill, maybe there will be a clawback action against the SEC. Strange times. Now, that would be interesting to see. You could see a lot of money, leaving the coffers of the SEC if that attack happened. Because again, think about this. There's that, but there's also all this the political donations. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a feeling of what should happen in a just world, but I'm just reporting on where we're at right now. Then there was this David Schwartz, who of course is Ripple's CTO and co-creator of the XRP Ledger. He responded to attorney Bill Morgan of the XRP community, and David Schwartz wrote, worse. BlockFi borrowing funds from FTX for fines may be connected to BlockFi assets being stored at FTX. In other words, the SEC may have made BlockFi so weak financially that it had no choice but to store crypto at FTX to continue operating, possibly the cause of their collapse. Oh man, wouldn't that be crazy if that's part of the deal? And it could be. I don't know. But what if part of the deal is like, okay, we're giving you this loan, now we need all of your crypto, and then the crypto was being held by FTX, which is a Ponzi scheme. And the SEC helped to put him in that position in a major way. Well, attorney Deaton responded to that and wrote, if the reports are true and FTX's $250 million loan to BlockFi was conditioned on BlockFi holding its customer funds on FTX, the Department of Justice Criminal Division can use this transaction alone to establish jurisdiction and specific intent in a fraud case. So that part's good to know. What a crazy freaking story. And I'd be surprised if the Contagion is done playing out. I suspect there's going to be some more fallout at some point. And you saw what happened after Luna. It didn't happen the next day or the next week. But then over a span of a couple months, 2-3 months, whatever it was, you saw multiple major entities fall apart. I'd be surprised if we don't see some more of that. So justice needs to be done here. It's repulsive. And the SEC is at the heart of so much of this. Go figure, right? I know. Color me surprised. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.